It is Monday, February 11th, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was very early Get Your Ass Kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. I had missed, if any of you guys have been listening, you're familiar with the fact that I have had a cold recently. Still kind of have it lingering around in the background, but I did not let that stop me from going to jiu-jitsu this morning. However, the fact of the matter is I'm way past quote-unquote infectious. There's like a period of time where you're actually infectious, and then a period of time when you're kicking its ass. Well, I'm on the kicking its ass side. So, but just so you know, I didn't go Wednesday. Oh no, I went Wednesday, and that was the day that I feel like I picked it up. I didn't go Thursday. I didn't go Friday. I didn't go Saturday or Sunday. I gave it 4 full days before I went back to the gym. So for all you guys that are thinking this is like some sort of justification to just like power through some sort of fucking illness and infect half the fucking dojo in the process, no, this is not your vindication. Okay, I actually did the time in the sick ward. You know, I did not contaminate my teammates during that period of time. I stayed on the sidelines. I suffered because, you know, I want to get on the mat and you know, beat somebody up. But, you know, I couldn't do it. I could not do that to my teammates. You know, it's like I look at the time that it's costing me, and it's like, oh yeah, I want to multiply that for every one of those motherfuckers that I managed to infect, right? Give me a break. And I mean, I'm a sweaty guy, so I mean, it'd be like, you know, like bird flu raining on you, you know. And so, yeah, I try to be a little more conscientious than I suppose the average person is, because, you know, jiu-jitsu is pretty much my social life. I think that's kind of fucked up. I mean, other than being online, of course. But like being online actually causes me to be more civil, because like most people just want to beat me up in my life. It's kind of a weird dichotomy. But anyway, yeah. So like I said, I got over the hump with regard to this cold, and I got into the 6 a.m. class, and they were covering this weird transition, and I was having quite a bit of difficulty with it, and I still probably will. But what it amounted to was going from an arm bar to transitioning to a all the way over to a bow and arrow choke, and there was an Ezekiel choke in there somewhere too. But it was this really neat progression. Honestly, I felt like there were even more opportunities within the progression that we were doing for further experimentation, at least. Whether or not that's actually part of the normal form or whatever, I couldn't tell you. I'm still just a blue belt. But nonetheless, I found that it was a really interesting transition, not one I actually had an opportunity to utilize, because I spent the rest of the time that I was there getting my ass kicked. I came really close to doing some sort of collar choke on my opponent at one point, because we did do a little rolling after the fact. But there was some points today that I felt like my recent decision to change my focus to getting back up. There were a couple moments where, even though one of my opponents was just like 100% offensive, it's like I'd get out of one thing and he would immediately be transitioning me into something else and something else and something else, and we did that for like 5 minutes, where he maintained a pretty dominant, pretty offensive stance throughout the entire thing. I think if I'd have been more passive on one point or another, I actually could have got a good guard take out of it. But nonetheless, I think that it was a really constructive point for my jiu-jitsu. One thing I am really bugged about, though, sometimes I feel like and not just with one particular person, but with instructors in general, that sometimes I'll describe exactly what I've got a question or a query about, and they'll describe something completely fucking different. I'm like, yeah, when you're doing that side step on your opponent, do you want to lift the arm up, or do you want to fold it in towards his torso? That's what I asked, right? I got back some weird thing, but then I watched the guy that was actually doing it. We were doing a takedown, and the instructor, quote unquote instructor, for the session, had a particular takedown that he wanted to work, and that's fine. But the other gentleman, who's higher ranked than me but a lower rank than him, had a minor twist on it, right? And honestly, when I was watching him do it, it seemed like it made more sense. Where it was something in the way he was directing the arm. He would get a hold of the like a double teacup grip on the sleeve and pull it away, right? But then either bundling it up into like a pistol grip, and then directing the arm with it, right? Well, what he was doing was he was swinging it to the outside, and then stepping past his opponent's right leg with his right leg, and then just kicking that leg out and down, guys down. And so, like, when I was watching that, I'm like, yeah, that's the way I want to do that one, but what I was asking the instructor for the time was, did he have a preference for either holding the arm out or folding it in towards your opponent's torso? And honestly, I felt like there's more direction. You can pull your opponent in a direction that facilitates your takedown by holding the arm up. Holding the arm that you have the grip on the sleeve with. Extending that outward, and then stepping into the big ass gap that you create between you and your opponent, right? So, like, you've got a collar, and preferably I would think the right collar with your right hand, right? And you're pushing across their torso while you're extending that arm out there, right? Well, there's this big-ass gap that you just step your right leg through and then kick theirs out from under him, and that motherfucker's going to go down, right? If you've got it framed right, the guy's going to go down. And so, like I said, when I was watching that, I'm like, yeah, the preference is to extend the arm out away from the body, opens up the big gap, get the leg through, bam, down. And so when I had the opportunity to do it, I was a little clumsy with it, but I think I managed to get it right once. Yeah, I really like takedowns. You guys who listen, you know that. Because ultimately, at one point or another, the fight is most likely standing. So you gotta have ways to get it down to the ground. And if it's a self-defense situation, being as violent and as brisk and as rough as possible is probably exactly what you want to do. And a good takedown is certainly the way to start it off that way, right? If that's your end goal, destroy. Yeah, you definitely want to go for that double leg or single leg and invert that person's world. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And as far as our first dance goes, again, flying by the seat of my pants here, hadn't really picked anything out here, and I'm still kind of up in the air. Well, we did add some Fear Factory recently, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with Fear Factory or not, but they went through this period where they didn't have this one band member who had been like one of the originating band members, and the music has a little bit of a different flavor to it. I really like it because it feels like it's a little more energetic and a little more impactful, but that could also be because I've listened to the other albums with this gentleman participating like 8 billion and a half times, and this this album is relatively new to me. So, let's go ahead and go for it. And as far as what song, though, I haven't listened to the full album, so I really couldn't tell you which one would be the best one. Let's go with Cyber Waste. That seems to reflect a little bit of my Twitter experience over the last, 24 hours. Cyber Waste, First Dance, here on Coin Metal. And that was Motorhead with Ace of Spades. Damn, I love that song. Anyways, as far as what we're going to get into today, as usual, I got a ton of tabs open. As far as exactly how many of them we're going to get into, or exactly which ones, I'm not entirely certain. But I'm sure we'll wend our way through it, Not that one. Not that one. Not right there. This one is kind of interesting to me, and only because I've had conversations with people on Twitter that I would be willing to bet would be certain individuals that I know I've already had conversations with, but under different names. And that's among the like panoply of weird shit I've seen on Twitter. But anyway, this is on medium.com. Fake and paid followers in crypto Twitter. And this is by Panama Crypto, February 11th, 4-minute read. I'm just going by the strong male dominance in the iconography. Yes, penis. Currently, it is very easy to become an influencer on Twitter due to the poor scam/spam and bot management by Twitter. Quick searches on Google and $80 could put anyone on the 10,000 followers tier in a snap of a finger. A la Thanos. We all need to start doing due diligence on who we follow. We need to ask ourselves, quote, how this guy with the dog avatar got to XXX thousand of followers out of nowhere. Did he actually pay for them? Basics. Before we get on to the real world examples, there needs to be a clear understanding that fake followers, it is not the same as paid followers. Most accounts in Twitter with significant amount of followers have some degree of fake followers. Why? Well, let's say Twitter is doing a poor job controlling bots, fake, spam, and scam accounts. It is already known and documented that the XRP army of bots do whatever they want on Twitter without consequences. The amount of fake followers also varies from community to community. You will not see similar percentages of fake followers in the data visualization community as in crypto community. Proliferation of fake followers goes where the money is. Twitter just recently got somewhat in control of the Ethereum giveaway scam accounts, which appeared on every single crypto Twitter account for months. These guys racked up 50,000 to 100,000 daily. Don't trust, verify. Twitter audit. We are all quick to drop conclusions just by looking at a pie chart. In this case, blah blah blah. Audit Twitter report. These examples with fake followers, as usual, due to their volume of followers. And this was Miss Altcoin was a 90% audit score of real people. Let's see. It just shows some pie charts and like averages of fake users or something. I don't know. 3 examples, all with fake followers, as is usual due to their volume of followers. Everything looks alright at first glance, all with above 80% real followers, which seems like a passing grade. If we go on to read the small letters on Twitter audit, we observe that their audit takes a sample of 5,000 followers and assigns a score based on a number of tweets, date of the last tweet, and ratio of followers to friends. Legit? Good seems good, but let's go a bit deeper since Twitter audit numbers seem misleading. SparkToro. SparkToro is a newer tool which can audit fake followers, follow trends, and determine true level of influence. In this instance, we are only using the fake followers audit. It is free, but is capped at 10 queries per day. The ones that seem to have a good result on Twitter audit, Miss Altcoin, Miss XBT, now don't look any good anymore. And the one with the lowest Twitter audit score, Anna Irera, looks quite kosher. And it gives a different series of charts to go along with the data. Interesting. The quality of SparkToro audit is far superior to Twitter audit. Why? Just one chart. This time more is better. Twitter audit model to check it's quite simplistic and it's excessively lenient towards possible fake accounts. SparkToro also distinguishes between low, average, and quality followers. Social Blade. Going further down the rabbit hole, let's look graphically at the evolution of following base of our three subjects with Social Blade. Now we can draw more fact based on base conclusions looking at the numbers and the evolution of the followers of each subject. Miss Altcoin and Miss XBT definitely paid for followers. Anna Herrera did not. Why? Abrupt changes of thousands and thousands of followers up or down is a sign of manipulation. Usually when an abrupt dip in followers means that one of the paid for followers is adjusting to an acceptable level. Smooth continuous trends in the monthly followers chart is how organic follower growth looks like. Takeaway points. Avoid using Twitter audit. Currently, your go-to tools should be SparkToro and Social Blade. SparkToro is a good initial indicator to understand if someone paid for followers. Remember that all communities have different proliferation of scam/spam bot accounts. Whenever looking at someone's percent of fake followers on SparkToro, compare to someone with similar amount of followers and make sure they are active on the same community. Social Blade should be the final confirmation of somebody purchasing fake followers. Smooth graph, okay. Abrupt changes in graph, no bueno. If you enjoy the read, follow me on Twitter for good karma. Yeah. That's definitely good analytics information if you're trying to be really precise with regard to your impact and understand exactly who your detractors are and who your followers are. It seems like this would be a really good way to measure your actual social impact. You know, you might be just being followed by a bunch of fucking bot accounts or some shit. You never know. Although I will say from my Twitter feed, it seems to me that I have some really fucking smart people following me and that I'm following some really fucking smart people instead of actual scam accounts. I could be mistaken though, and these tools would certainly be useful in determining that. But yeah, as far as where else we want to go tonight, I've got, like I said, I got a ton of different browser tabs open. I had a whole bunch open from earlier, but something weird happened on my desktop setting, and so I had to get drastic. Anyway, this one actually was the one I wanted to go to absolutely first, but didn't quite make it to because we hit something else beforehand. And this is on Cryptograph Yang Engineering, or cryptographyengineering.com. And this is published on February 11th, 2019 by a Mr. Matthew Green. Clearly, by the picture and the name, penis. Attack of the week. Searchable encryption and the ever-expanding leakage function. Hold on just one moment. I gotta do something here. Much better. A few days ago, I had the pleasure of hosting Kenny Patterson, who braved snow and historic cold by Baltimore standards, to come and talk to us about encrypted databases. Kenny's newest result is with first authors Paul Grubbs, Mary Sarah Lackerty, and Bryce Minaud. Let's call it GLMP. It isn't so much about building encrypted databases as it is about the risks of building them badly, and, for reasons I will get into shortly, there have been a lot of badly constructed encrypted database schemes going around. What GLMP point out is that this weakness isn't so much a knock against the authors of those schemes, but rather an indication that they may just be trying to do the impossible. Hopefully this is a good enough start to get you drawn in, which is excellent because I'm going to need to give you a lot of background. What is an encrypted database and why are they a problem? Databases, both relational and otherwise, are a pretty important part of the computing experience. Modern systems make vast use of databases and their accompanying querying technology in order to power just about every software application we depend on. Because these databases often contain sensitive information, there has been a strong push to secure that data. A key goal is to encrypt the contents of the database so that malicious database operators or hackers can't get access to it if they compromise a single machine. If we live in a world where security was all that mattered, the encryption part would be pretty easy. Database records are, after all, just blobs of data, and we know how to encrypt those. So we could generate a cryptographic key on our local machine, encrypt the data before we upload it to a vulnerable database server, and just keep the key locally on our client computer. Voila! We're safe against a database hack. The problem with this approach is that encrypting the database records leaves us with a database full of opaque, unreadable encrypted junk. Since we have the decryption key on our client, we can decrypt and read those records after we've downloaded them. But this approach completely disables one of the most useful features of modern databases, the ability for the database server itself to search or query the database for specific records, so that the client doesn't have to. Unfortunately, standard encryption borks search capability pretty badly. If I want to search a database for, say, employees whose salary is between $50,000 and $100,000, my database is helpless. All it sees is row after row of encrypted gibberish. In the worst case, the client will have to download all of the data rows and search them itself. Yuck. This has led to much wailing and gnashing of teeth in the database community. As a result, many cryptographers and a distressing number of non-cryptographers have tried to fix the problem with, quote, fancier crypto. This has not gone very well. It would take me 100 years to detail all the various solutions that have been put forward, but let me just hit a few of the high points. Number 1. Some proposals have suggested using deterministic encryption to encrypt database records. Deterministic encryption ensures that a given plain text will always encrypt to a single ciphertext value, at least for a given key. This enables exact match queries. A client can simply encrypt the exact value, John Smith, that it's searching for and ask the database to identify encrypted rows that match it. Of course, Number 2, of course, exact match queries don't support more powerful features. Most databases also need to support range queries. One approach to this is something called order-revealing encryption, or its weaker sibling, order-preserving encryption. These do exactly what they say they do. They allow the database to compare two encrypted records to determine which plain text is greater than the other. Number 3, some people have proposed to use trusted hardware to solve these problems in a simpler way. But, as we like to say in cryptography, if we actually had trusted hardware, nobody would pay our salaries. And, speaking more seriously, if even hardware might not stop the leakage-based attacks discussed below. This summary barely scratches the surface of this problem, and frankly, you don't need to know all the details for the purpose of this blog post. What you do need to know is that each of the above proposals entails some degree of, quote, leakage. Namely, if I'm an attacker who is able to compromise the database both to see its contents and to see how it responds when you, a legitimate user, makes a query, then I can learn something about the data being queried. What's some examples of leakage and what's a leakage function? Leakage is a nearly unavoidable byproduct of an encrypted database that supports queries. It can happen when the attacker simply looks at the encrypted data, as she might if she was able to dump the contents of your database and post them on the dark web. But a more powerful type of leakage occurs when the attacker is able to compromise your database server and observe the query interaction between legitimate clients and your database. And it sounds more akin to the kind of thing that Marriott was experiencing, because their shit was like hacked for 4 years. Anyway, continuing. Take deterministic encryption for instance. Deterministic encryption has the very useful but also unpleasant feature that the same plain text will always encrypt to the same ciphertext. This leads to very obvious types of leakage, in the sense that an attacker can see repeated records in the data set itself. Extending this to the active setting, if a legitimate client queries on a specific encrypted value, the attacker can see exactly which records match the attacker's encrypted value. She can see how often each value occurs, which gives an indication of what value it might be. Ergo, the last name Smith is more common than Azrael. All of these vectors leak valuable information to an attacker. Other systems leak even more. Order-preserving encryption leaks the exact order of a list of underlying records because it causes the resulting ciphertexts to have the same order. This is great for searching and sorting, but unfortunately, it leaks tons of useful information to an attacker. Indeed, researchers have shown that in real data sets, an ordering can be combined with knowledge about the record distribution in order to approximately reconstruct the contents of an encrypted database. Fancier order-reading encryption schemes aren't quite so careless with your confidentiality. They enable the legitimate client to perform range queries, but without leaking the full ordering so trivially. This approach can leak less information, but a persistent attacker will still learn some data from observing a query and its response. At a minimum, she will learn which rows constitute the response to a query, since the database must pick up the matching records and send them over to the client. If you're having trouble visualizing what this last type of leakage might look like, Here's a picture that shows what an attacker might see when a user queries an unencrypted database versus what an attacker might see with a really, quote, good encrypted database that supports range queries. And then it shows a couple diagrams here. Let's see. Select where salaries between 2,500 and 13,000, queries 5,000, 1,000, 8,000, 40,000, 12,000, rows 1, 3, 5. Okay. Select where salaries between blank and blank, rows 1, 3, 5. Okay. I see how that works. Even though you can't see the values of what the total salaries are, because it did return 1, 3, and 5 on the previous query, if you're observing it from outside, you can match it inversely. You say that rows 1, 3, 5 will inevitably match between 2,500 and 13,000. So the TLDR here is that many encrypted database schemes have some sort of, quote, leakage, and this leakage can potentially reveal information about A, what a client is querying on, and B, what data is in the actual database. But surely cryptographers don't build leaky schemes. Sometimes the perfect is the enemy of the good. Cryptographers could spend 1,000,000 years stressing themselves to death over the practical impact of different types of leakage. They could also try to do things perfectly using expensive techniques like fully homomorphic encryption and oblivious RAM, but the results would be highly inefficient. A common view in the field is researchers should do the very best we can and then carefully explain to users what the risks are. For example, a real database system might provide the following guarantee. Quote, records are opaque. If the user queries for all records between some hidden volumes X and Y, then all the database will learn is row numbers of the records that match the range and nothing else. This is a pretty awesome guarantee, particularly if you can formalize it and prove that a scheme achieves it. And indeed, this is something researchers have tried to do. The formalized description is typically achieved by defining something called a leakage function. It might not be possible to prove that a scheme is absolutely private, but we can prove that it only leaks as much as the leakage function allows. Now, I may be overdoing this slightly, but I want to be very clear about this next part. Proving your encrypted database protocol is secure with respect to a specific leakage function does not mean it is safe to use in practice. What it means is that you are punting that question to the application developer, who is presumed to know how this leakage will affect their dataset and their security needs. Your leakage function and proof simply tell the app developer what information your scheme is provably going to protect and what it won't. The obvious problem with this approach is that the application developers probably don't have any idea what's safe to use either. Helping them to figure this out is one goal of this new GLMP paper and its related work. So what leaks from these schemes? GLMP don't look at a specific encryption scheme. Rather, they ask a more general question. Let's imagine that we can only see what a legitimate user has made a range query, but not what the actual queried range values are. Further, let's assume that we can also see which records the database returns for that query, but not their actual values. How much does just this information tell us about the contents of the database? You can see that this is a very limited amount of leakage. Indeed, it is possibly the least amount of leakage that you could imagine for any system that supports range queries and is also efficient. So in one sense, you could say authors are asking a different and much more important question. Are any of these encrypted databases actually secure? The answer is somewhat worrying. Can you give me an example, a simple illuminating example? Let's say I'm an attacker who has compromised a database and observes the following two range queries / results from a legitimate client. Query 1. Select star from salaries between some icon and another icon. Result 1, rows 1, 3, 5. Query 2. Select star from salaries between icon and icon. Result 2, rows 1, 43, 3, and 5. Here I'm using the emojis to illustrate that an attacker can't see the actual values submitted within the range queries. Those are protected by the scheme. Nor can she see the actual values of the result rows, since the fancy encryption scheme hides all this stuff. All the attacker sees is that a range query came in and some specific rows were scooped up off disk after running the fancy search protocol. So what can the attacker learn from the above queries? Surprisingly, quite a bit. At very minimum, the attacker learns that query 2 returned all the same records as query 1. Thus, the range of the latter query clearly somewhat overlaps with the range of the former. There is an additional record, row 43, that is not within the range of query 1. This tells us that row 43 must be either the next greater or smaller record than each of the rows 1, 3, 5. That's useful information. Get enough useful information, it turns out that it starts to add up. In 2016, Colaris, Calois, Nissim, and O'Neill showed that if you know the distribution of the query range endpoints, for example, if you assumed that they were uniformly random, that you can get more than just the order of records. You can reconstruct the exact value of every record in the database. This result is statistical in nature. If I know that the queries are uniformly random, then I can model how often a given value, say age 34, out of a range of 1 to 120, should be responsive to a given random query result. By counting the actual occurrences of a specific row after many search queries, I can guess which rows correlate to specific record values. The more queries I see, the more certain I can be. The Colaris et al. Paper shows that this takes O times n to the fourth log n queries, where n is the number of possible values your data can take on, ergo the ages of your employees, ranging between 1 and 100, would give n equals 100. This is assuming an arbitrary data set. The results get much better if the database is, quote, dense, meaning every possible value occurs once. In practice, the Colaris et al. Results mean that database fields with small domains, like ages, could be quickly reconstructed after observing a reasonable number of queries from a legitimate user, albeit one who likes to query everything randomly. So that's really bad. The main bright spot in this research, at least up until recently, was that many types of data have much larger domains. If you're dealing with salary data ranging from, say, 1 to 200,000, pardon me. Yeah. From, say, 1 to 200,000, then n 200,000 and this dominant n to the fourth tends to make Colaris et al. Attacks impractical, simply because they'll take too long. Similarly, data like employee's last name, encoded as a form that can be sorted and range queries, gives you even vaster domains, like into 26 to the 12th, say, and so perhaps we could pleasantly ignore these results and spend our time on more amusing engagements. I bet we can't ignore these results, can we? Indeed, it seems we can't. The reason we can't sit on our laurels and hope for an attacker to die of old age recovering large domain data sets is due to something called approximate database reconstruction, or ADR. The setting here is the same. An attacker sits and watches an attacker make uniformly random... Why does it say an attacker? I bet it's intentional. It's supposed to be an attacker sits and watch a legitimate user make uniformly random range queries. The critical difference is this attacker isn't trying to get every database record back. Oh wait, yeah, maybe it is attacker watching an attacker. I'll start over. The setting here is the same. An attacker sits and watches an attacker make uniformly random range queries. The critical difference is that this attacker isn't trying to get every database record back at its exact value. She's willing to tolerate some degree of error, up to an additive n. For example, if I'm trying to recover employee salaries, I don't need them to be exact. Getting them within 1 to 5% is probably good enough for my purposes. Similarly, reconstructing nearly all of the letters in your last name probably lets me guess the rest, especially if I know the distribution of common last names. Which finally brings us to this new GLMP paper, which puts ADR on steroids. What it shows is that the same setting, if one is willing to sacrifice a few of the highest and lowest values in the database, an attacker can reconstruct nearly the full database in a much smaller asymptotic number of queries. Specifically, and I'm not going to read the math there, queries where the one factor is the error parameter. Okay. The important thing to notice about these results is that the value n has dropped out of the equation. The only term that's left is the term e. That means these results are scale free, and asymptotically at least they work just as well for small values of n as large ones, and large databases and small ones. This really is remarkable. Big O notation doesn't do anything for me. What does this even mean? Big O notation is beloved by computer scientists, but potentially meaningless in practice. There could be huge constants in these terms that render these attacks completely impractical. Besides, weird equations involving epsilon characters are impossible for humans to understand. Sometimes the easiest way to understand a theoretical result is to plug some actual numbers in and see what happens. The GLMP were kind enough to do this for us by first generating several random databases, each containing 1,000 records for different values of n. They then ran their recovery algorithm against a simulated batch of random range queries to see what the actual error rate looked like as the query count increased. Here are their results, and gives us a nice little chart. Let's see. Blah blah blah. Each database contains 1,000 records. Note that the biggest errors occur around the largest number and the smallest values in the data set, so the results are much better if one is willing to sacrifice those values. Okay. Even after just 100 queries, the error in the database has been hugely reduced, and after 500 queries, the contents of the database, excluding the tails, can be recovered with about a 1 to 2% error rate. Moreover, these experimental results illustrate the fact that recovery works at many scales. That is, they work nearly as well for every different values of n, ranging from 1 to 100,000. This means that the only variable you really need to think about as an attacker is, how close do I need my reconstruction to be? This is probably not very good news for any real data set. How do these techniques actually work? The answer is both very straightforward and deeply complex. The straightforward part is simple. The complex part requires an understanding of that one's like stumping me there. Cervanensis learning theory, VC theory, which is beyond the scope of this blog post but explained in the paper. And you know what? They keep referring back to the paper, so we're going to go ahead and right-click on that, but we're not going to go to it yet. At the very highest level of the recovery approach is similar to what's been done in the past, using response probabilities to obtain record values. This paper does it much more efficiently and approximately, using fancy learning theory results while making a few assumptions. At the highest level, we are going to assume that the range queries are made on random endpoints ranging from 1 to n. This is a big assumption, and more on it later. Yet, with just this knowledge in hand, we can learn quite a bit. For example, we can compute the probability that a potential record value, say the specific salary $34,234, is going to be sent back, provided we know the total value lies in the range 1 to n. Say we know that all salaries are between $1 and $200,000. If we draw the resulting probability curve in freehand, it might look something like the chart below. This isn't actually to scale or probably even accurate, but it illustrates a key point. By the nature of random range queries, records near the center are going to have a higher overall chance of being responsive to any given query, since the quote center values are more frequently covered by random ranges, and records near the extreme high and low values will be chosen less frequently. The high level of database reconstruction is to match the observed response rate for a given row, say row 41, to the number of responses we'd expect to see from different specific concrete values in the range. Clearly, the accuracy of this approach is going to depend on the number of queries you, the attacker, can observe. More is better. And since the response rates are lower at the highest and lowest values, it will take more queries to guess outlying data values. You might also notice that there is one major pitfall here. Since the graph above is symmetric around its midpoint, the expected response rate will be the same for the record at 0.25 times n and the record at 0.75 times n. That is, a $50,000 salary will be responsive at random queries at precisely the same rate as a $150,000 salary. So, even if you get every database row pegged precisely to its response rate, your results might still be flipped horizontally around the midpoint. Usually this isn't the end of the world because databases aren't normally full of unstructured random data. High salaries will be less common than low salaries in most organizations, for example, so you can probably figure out the ordering based on that assumption. But this last quote bit of information is technically not guaranteed to come back, minus some assumptions about the data set. Thus, the recovery algorithm breaks down into two steps. First, observe the response rate for each record as random range queries arrive. For each record that responds to such a query, try to solve for a concrete value that minimizes the difference between the expected response rate on that value and the observed rate. The probability estimation can be made more efficient, eliminating the quadratic term, by assuming that there is at least one record in the database within the range 0.2 times n minus 0.3 times n, or 0.7 n times n minus 0.8 n. I'm sorry, I'm just like putting in the times there. 0.2 n minus 0.3 n, or 0.7 n minus 0.8 n due to symmetry. Using this quote anchor record requires a mild assumption about the database contents. What remains is to show that the resulting attack is efficient. You can do this by simply implementing it, as illustrated by the charts above, or you can prove that it's efficient. The GLMP paper uses some very heavy statistical machinery to do the latter. Specifically, they make use of a result from Vapnik VC theory that shows that the bound can be derived from something called the VC dimension, which is a small number in this case, and is unrelated to the actual value of n. This proof forms the bulk of the result, but the empirical results are also pretty good. Is there anything else in the paper? Yes, it gets worse. There is much more in this. There is so much in this paper that I cannot possibly include it here without risking carpal tunnel and boredom, and all of it is bad news for the field of encrypted databases. The biggest additional result is one that shows that if all you want is an approximate ordering of the database rows, then you can do this efficiently using something called a PQ tree. Asymptotically, this requires this fucking little logarithm queries that experimentally the results are again even better than one would expect. Sorry, I didn't read that all out. What's even more important about this ordering result is that it works independently of the query distribution. That is, we do not need to have random range queries in order for this to work. It works reasonably well regardless of how the client puts its queries together up to a point. Even better, the authors showed that this ordering, along with some knowledge of the underlying database distribution, for example, let's say we know that it consists of U.S. citizen last names, can also be used to obtain approximate database reconstruction. Oy vey. And there's still even more. Number one, the authors show how to obtain even more efficient database recovery in a setting where the query range values are known to the attacker, using PAC learning. This is a more generous setting than previous work, but it could be realistic in some cases. Number two, finally, they extend this result to prefix and suffix queries as well as range queries to show that they can run their attacks on a dataset from the Fraternal Order of Police, obtaining record recovery in a few hundred queries. In short, this is really bad for the field of encrypted databases. So what do we do about this? I don't know, ignore the results, fake our own deaths, and move into a submarine? In all seriousness, database encryption has been a controversial subject in our field. I wish I could say there's been an actual debate, but it's more that different researchers have fallen into different camps, and nobody has really had the data to make their position in a compelling way. There have actually been some very personal arguments made about it. The schools of thought are as follows. The first holds that any kind of database encryption is better than storing records in plain text, and And we should stop demanding things be perfect when the alternative is a world of constant data breaches and sadness. To me, this is a supportable position, given that the current attack model for plaintext databases is something like copy the database files or just run a local select query, and the threat model for an encrypted database is gain persistence on the server and run sophisticated statistical attacks. Most attackers are pretty lazy, so even a weak system is probably better than nothing. The countervailing school of thought has 2 points. Sometimes the good is much worse than the perfect, particularly if it gives application developers an outsized degree of confidence that the security that their encryption system is going to provide them, or of the security that their encryption system is going to provide them. If even the best encryption protocol is only throwing a tiny roadblock in the attacker's way, why risk it at all? Just let the database community come up with some kind of ROT13 encryption that everyone knows to be crap, and stop throwing good research time into a problem that has no good solution. I don't really know who is right in this debate. I'm just glad to see we're getting closer to having it. Wow. Man, that was pretty extensive. And what does that really say for all of us that are building in the cryptocurrency sphere? I mean, we've already covered on this show other papers that have actually taken on the task of trying to figure out private keys for people's wallets. So it's not as though this stuff is above concern or even public knowledge. You know, I mean, if you're knowledgeable within a certain set of data, it makes what you're looking for a little bit easier to find. And when you can refine the search down to private keys of a specific cryptocurrency out of the myriad that are available, it seems like it'd probably make things a lot easier as far as determining exactly that. You know, I mean, given the types of techniques that they're talking about here. But I don't know how that would relate with the way that keys are generated and whatnot with regard to cryptocurrencies, as far as their wallets and the transaction IDs and shit like that. But yeah, it's certainly something to consider. You know, I mean, it's one of those things, I think, that the good is good enough. You know, that if you can make the wall high enough that it's a bitch and a half to get over, it'll dissuade that many more attackers from trying to steal the fucking money. It's like, you know, if I can, it's the basic root of Bitcoin is that if it's more profitable to play by the rules than to cheat, you're going to play by the rules. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. That was fucking long. And as far as what to play, though, well, I got some Pantera going on in the background. We haven't played them in a while. Let's go ahead with some Cowboys from Hell here on Coin Metal. And that was Disturbed with Shout. Yeah. So as far as that encryption business, we're not going to go any further into that. I looked up the paper for that, 62-page PDF. So yeah, we're not going to be able to do that. And I mean, I can read fast sometimes, but not that fast. Anyway, yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I think it's impactful. Something we might want to consider in our little topologies is, you know, as we design our little algorithms and all that business. But yeah, learning to reconstruct statistical learning theory and encrypted database attacks. Yeah, definitely check it out. It's it's a PDF, eprint.iacr.org 2019 slash 2019 slash 011.pdf. And yeah, like I said, that's 62 pages. It's long stuff. I'm glad we were able to find that somebody had actually gone through and read it and then gave us a little synopsis of it. I really appreciate that. Anyway, as far as where else I wanted to go tonight, I don't know. I think I might want to go into this one. This is, yeah, maybe. I don't know. We might come back to this. This is about market manipulation. But that's not actually where I wanted to go with this. Ooh, that's another good one. I might go there too. What to know about the airdrop token, Tron's BitTorrent airdrop? That might actually be where we end up going. Let's see, no, that's not it. Okay, Craig Wright. That's just like the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? I gotta wonder why. You know, I mean, it's like he says such crazy shit sometimes, and it's like, how serious do I take this guy? He's got his own fork of Bitcoin Cash, and I mean, that's saying something, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, I tracked this thing on Reddit, and this is actually in reference to a series of tweets, I think it was, that Mr. Wright had posted on Twitter. And so here it is. Craig Wright caught lying again. On 10th of February, Craig Wright tried to convince people that he is Satoshi Nakamoto by releasing an abstract of a research paper called Black Net that he supposedly wrote for the Australian government in 2001. The abstract is almost identical to the official Bitcoin white paper of October 2008. However, Satoshi had a draft in August 2008 of the Bitcoin white paper, and when we compare the draft with the original, the official Bitcoin white paper, we can see the corrections made between August and October of 2008 are also found in Craig's paper from quote-unquote 2001. This proves again that he is a liar. Long version. What's new in the world of Craig Wright, the endless bullshitter? A few days ago, Craig Wright announced that out of desperation he has been, quote, forced to come out and say he is Satoshi again. Pinky swear. He wrote some articles and tweets about it since then. I've committed myself to dive deep into this diarrhea with the goal of finding a few nuggets of solid shit, and I did. He tweeted yesterday sharing what he says is an R&D paper he had submitted with the Australian government in 2001. Yes, a whole 7 years before the official release of the Bitcoin white paper. Now, of course, you might say, scoop it up. Why did you make your eyes bleed and read this Twitter? And read his Twitter? And honestly, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm Satoshi. The R&D white paper he supposedly submitted in 2001 is about Black Net, a precursor of Bitcoin. He tweeted the abstract of the Black Net here, and blah blah blah. Since many years, it is well known that Bitcoin that Satoshi shared a draft of the original Bitcoin white paper with WeDay and others. Link. And let's see, that's a link. There you can see the Bitcoin white paper draft from August 2008 contains multiple differences with the final Bitcoin white paper of October 2008. Quick link all to corrections made by Satoshi to the draft to form the final white paper. And there's another link here. Now the abstract of Craig's paper, blah, blah, blah. Comparison. Bloody scam artists. Off topic, I found a selfie of Craig Wright. And let's see what it is. it's Smeagol. No. Anyway, so yeah. Let's see. Wait, you're telling me Craig Wright's a fake proof is sarcasm, sloppy, obvious plagiarism? I'm just reading through some of the comments on this. The comments for Reddit are usually entertaining. A little bit pedantic sometimes, but you know. So let's see. First, K. Rice says, wait, you're telling me Craig S. Wright would fake proof? /sarcasm. And the next one is contrarian, sloppy and obvious plagiarism, backdated document, proof to come in some indeterminate time. This is peak fake Toshi. Yeah, you know, that was one of the things that actually caused me to investigate this, is that I'm actually blocked by Craig Wright, and that's how he responds to anybody questioning his wisdom, as far as my experience has been concerned. You know, because before he blocked me, I watched him block a series of other people, and so anyway, he references in this string of tweets this paper that's supposed to come out in the near future. And like it's a back reference, right? Like somebody asked about, you know, because he posted the abstract for this document, right? And somebody asked, when are the full papers going to come out? And he's like, oh, well, you know, that's going to be released in the near future. What the fuck does that mean, man? You've had 11 years, or according to him, 20 years for he and his team to be working on this opus fucking magnate, fucking opus paper. It's just a fucking huge paper, right? Took 20 years to write it. Gonna have to wait a little bit more. I don't know why, but that reminds me of the Lightning Network's 18 months. The 18 months that never comes. And before you know it, all you got is custodial wallets hanging around. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting. I might actually go to there too. Anyway, so yeah, there's a bunch of comments on here. It's kind of what you would expect. Let's see. Richards _86 says, I can almost picture a future headline where someone finds out he used a font that didn't exist in 2001. Quote, for the timeline to work, CSW claims to have invented Calibri back in 2001 when working on the original Bitcoin white paper. And let's see, Contrarian says, you joke, but there are those that would absolutely say that with a straight face. Yeah, you know, I think he's in court right now. It seems to me like because he tried to lay claim to somebody else's coins or some shit, or he claimed to have the coins, or he was holding the coins, or some coins that belonged to somebody else, or he had managed to finagle access to the coins, or I'm not entirely certain how that all went down, but I think he is in court, or there's like some delayed shit going on with his trial, or anyway, in Florida, I think it is, that he's in court there. So yeah, you know, you gotta wonder, you know, is this some sort of misdirection to keep you from looking up articles on his court case? Oh man, yeah, the cryptosphere has always been this entertaining. Let me tell you, it's one of the reasons I do this show, man, because it's just like, it's pure gold. You know, I mean, if you really had an opportunity to go back to the .com era and do a blow-by-blow like 3 times a week, wouldn't you fucking do it? I would do it. I listen to that show probably religiously just so I can hear some more context on what I was actually living through. You know, so, you know, from at least from other perspectives, you know, others that didn't actually shake out in the end. But speaking of fraudsters, this case has been fraudsters from the get-go. We're not exactly sure who the initiating fraudsters were. I sometimes have my doubts about it having been Mr. Mark Karpelny's. I sometimes think that he was either betrayed by somebody on the inside, or a DEA agent or an FBI agent that was working for him, or CIA agent or NSA or CFTC, or I don't know, man. Somebody fucked him over, or he fucked himself over, maybe both. I don't know. I wasn't in the room when it was going on, so I couldn't definitively say that. Anyway, I got this thing on ambcrypto.com. Mt. Gox's Bitcoin market share is more than the gold reserves of Swiss Central Bank. This is by Priya. I don't know, from the picture and the name. Let's see what this is. Yes. No. Rather, no penis. For Priya, that is. So yeah, Mt. Gox's Bitcoin market share is more than the gold reserves of Swiss Central Bank. That's surprising, a little bit, at least. God damn it, it's got some fucking overlay on here. That's okay. We can fix it. No more overlay. Fuck your overlay. Die overlay. Bye. Now the page looks right. Mt. Gox, a Bitcoin cryptocurrency exchange, has always been a major player in the cryptocurrency space. The exchange platform is said to have played a major role in the adoption of Bitcoin in the past. However, it soon came crumbling to the floor because of a hack, resulting in the loss of over 7% of the Bitcoins in circulation in 2014. The popular exchange has taken the spotlight several times over the past few years. This time the exchange has taken the stage because of a minor study of Bitcoin and gold reserves. Tour de Meester, the founding partner of Adamant Capital, worked on an analysis of Bitcoin in the circulating supply equivalent to central banks' gold reserves. Let's see here. He went on to say, allows for fun comparisons, ergo, the Mt. Gox trustee currently controls 137,891 Bitcoin, which is bigger in terms of market share than the gold reserves of the Swiss Central Bank. This was followed by the founder speaking about how much the Dutch Central Bank would have to invest in Bitcoin in order to have the same control over the digital gold as it has over gold. He said, quote, "If the Dutch Central Bank wanted to hold as much weight in the Bitcoin world as it does in the gold world, it can do that by investing $250 million in Bitcoin today. The current value of the Dutch Central Bank gold is about 25 billion. So in order to buy 69,000 Bitcoin, the mined Bitcoin equivalent of the Dutch gold reserve, it would only need to sell 1% of its gold, i.e. 492 bars. Apart from this, the exchange is currently in the spotlight because of the Gox Rising, which is aimed at reviving Mt. Gox. My apologies. The movement is led by Brock Pierce, a cryptocurrency billionaire. The billionaire claimed that he had purchased 88% of the exchange's stake for 1 Bitcoin, and remaining stakes from Jed McCaleb, co-founder of Stellar and Ripple, for 1 Bitcoin again. However, these claims were shot down by Mark Karpelny, the CEO of Mt. Gox, at the time of this hack. He said on Twitter, quote, No purchase agreement was ever even drafted, and the court didn't approve.
the LOI. I didn't hear of the price until recently either, and Tybane has no record of any payment for the shares. Mt. Gox's official shareholders list doesn't list Brock Pierce anywhere. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, you can't have over 100,000 Bitcoin tied up in some shit and not have people trying to get a hold of it. Even if they don't actually deserve any of it. There's that one stakeholder is holding up a lot of people from receiving their Bitcoin because of his major investment. He thinks he's supposed to get his money first. I think he's due maybe the Bitcoin that he loaned, but no more. Maybe the dollar value of the Bitcoin he loaned or some shit like that. But certainly not paying him in front of everybody else and basically telling everybody to screw themselves. I think that's kind of meh. It's not really a positive resolution to the situation, Anyway, let's see if we have any more. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe. No. No. Oh, yeah, that's something kind of interesting. Oh, wow. That's even more interesting. This is something that might start wanting to pay attention to, especially in the increasing uncertainty out there as far as the fiat markets are concerned. I found this one on Bitcoin.com in their news section from Kevin Helms. It was authored 1 day ago. So yes, penis. Venezuela starts regulating and taxing crypto remittances. The Venezuelan government has begun regulating cryptocurrency remittances. The regulator has set a policy limit and set a monthly limit and will be collecting commissions of up to 15% of the transaction amount. Suck a dick, you are. Additionally, new details of its comprehensive registry of crypto service providers has been announced. That's not going to fucking help you do that shit. What? Regulating crypto remittances. The Superintendency of Crypto Assets and Related Activities, SUNACRIP, the regulator of all crypto activities in Venezuela, announced on Friday that the new regulation for remittances using cryptocurrencies has entered into force. The decree enacting this regulation was published in the country's official gazette, number 41581. The decree establishes, quote, the requirements and procedures for the sending and receiving of remittances in crypto assets to natural persons in the territory of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, SUNACRIP explained. According to the decree, quote, the sender of the remittances referred to in this ruling is obliged to pay a financial commission in favor of SUNACRIP up to a maximum amount of 15% calculated on the total of remittance. Yeah, go suck a dick. The minimum commission for SUNACRIP charges is, quote, equivalent to 0.25 euros per transaction, or about 28 cents. No, yeah, you go fuck yourself. According to the text of the regulation, SUNACRIP now has the power to establish remittance limits, set values of cryptocurrencies in sovereign bolivars, specify tariffs, and request data from issuers and receivers involved in the transactions. Local news outlet Crypto Noticias reported. I don't give a fuck what he wants. It's not going to happen. The monthly limit for sending remittances is equivalent to 10 petros, PTR, Venezuela's national currency, that the government claims to be a cryptocurrency backed by oil, gold, diamond, and other natural resources, which is also a bunch of bullshit. Quote, this translates into US $600 per month, according to the quota set for the PTR. Any amount that exceeds this limit will require the Sunicrypt endorsement, which will authorize up to a maximum of 50 PTR, $3,000. The publication elaborated. Yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit. It's not going to happen. Following Sunicrypt's announcement, some people took to Twitter to voice their opinion about the new rules. One user commented that these rules are, quote, the most absurd thing I've seen. Another user tweeted, an absurd regulatory framework. Instead of promoting the adoption of crypto assets, they are trying to centralize something that at its genesis is the opposite. Crypto Service Registry. Following the initial enforcement of crypto regulation in Venezuela on January 31st, with the publication of Official Gazette number 575, the government has proceeded to enact rules specific to the Cryptocurrency Service Registry. The superintendent of Sunicrypt, Ramirez Joselet, announced on February 5th that all regulation for the Integral Registry of Services in Crypto Assets, RISSEC, has entered into force with its publication in Official Gazette number 41578. The Ministry of Popular Power for Communication and Information explained that, quote, natural, legal, public, and private persons, communal councils, and other organizations of the people's power that intend to carry out activities related to the integral system of crypto assets may be registered. According to the decree, Sunicrypt is in charge of RISSEC, which will systematize the information related to the identity and other recurrent data of the user of the integral system of crypto assets and related activities. The regulator will designate a unit, quote, responsible for the control, monitoring, and verification of updating the data contained in the RISSEC. Dude. Two things. Number one, you're going to go broke trying to do this shit. Number two, it will not increase the level of compliance within the country of Venezuela. And I'm going to explain to you why. Because the first thing it's going to do is reveal the fact that your cops and political officials all the way up and down the chain have been using cryptocurrencies. And this is assuming you actually have the capability to monitor the transactions that are happening within your national borders, which, in fact, is very doubtful. We've already seen this. This whole charade in China back in like 2015 when they wanted to get hard about regulating cryptocurrencies, they keep running into it over and over and over and over again. You know, as a matter of fact, we got another article here that I want to get into really quick, and it kind of elaborates on what I'm saying here, because another country is finally coming to grips with the fact they can't do shit about their people mining, and have just said, okay, fuck it, we're just going to recognize this as official money, or recognize it as money. And so here it is. This one's on Bitcoin.com again. Bitcoin mooned temporarily in Iran after government okayed mining. Now, let's get some facts straight here. China had the same fucking occurrence, okay, where they said, oh, we're going to ban mining. And what happened? The mining said, okay, well, we'll just continue on doing what we're doing, and you're going to figure out how to try and hammer down on us. And then you're going to look at the numbers of the differential here and how it's shifting the interest in developing mining warehouses here, and the capital investment that's required behind that, and how people are looking at this regulatory framework that you're putting out and saying, no, I don't think I want to mine in China anymore. and you're going to change your fucking tune. And that's exactly what happened. Anyway, continuing on. The world's most expensive Bitcoin core price, BTC price, is in Iran. A combination of high foreign currency demand, economic sanctions, and an improved regulatory environment with some speculation sent the price of the leading digital currency skywards temporarily on one Iranian exchange. Falling rial, new policies spur Iran Bitcoin bull market. The price of Bitcoin in Iran rose sharply on Wednesday after the government of President Hassan Rouhani approved plans to mainstream Bitcoin mining, and as the local currency nosedived. Bitcoin hit a world record of $24,000 on the Iranian exchange EXIR. Actually, that's not a world record. It's not a world record. In Turkey, it hit $47,000, so fuck you. Continuing on. The Iranian exchange EXIR eclipsed its previous high of $20,000 as investors piled into the digital currency in search of a safe haven against the falling rial. Exer tweeted that, quote, Bitcoin bull markets already started in Iran as rial price goes down against USD. The rial is trading at around 138,000 against the US dollar on the streets of Tehran, according to a Reuters report, about 230% above the official rate of around 42,000. Iran embraces cryptocurrency mining. On Tuesday, Iran announced that it will officially start to recognize the mining of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as an industry within 3 weeks. The Central Bank of Iran, which oversees foreign exchange and monetary policy, is to draft a policy framework for the industry. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're going to let it do what it does and hope nobody gets hurt. Said Abul Hassan Firuzabadi, Secretary of Iran's Supreme Council of Cyberspace. Firuzabadi told IBNA, a specialized news agency in banking and economy which is affiliated to the Central Bank of Iran, that deepening the use of cryptocurrencies is envisaged to both smooth trade between Tehran and its partners, especially in the wake of renewed U.S. sanctions, quote, but the final policy for legislating it, crypto mining, hasn't been declared yet. Yeah, in other words, they can't stop the fucking miners. The miners are there, they're making money, they're getting taxes from the fucking money that the miners are making, and so they're shut the fuck up about it. That's what's going on. Inflation money. And by the way, the politicians themselves, the people running the whole show in Iran, they're just as subject to the fucking rial crashing on the world market as every other fucking Iranian. So you can bet your fucking sweet ass that they are mining Bitcoin themselves. Either them, their fucking kids, their nieces, their nephews, their grandma, somebody. They're in it. Anyway, continuing on. And by the way, that's the only reason they're having any kind of regulatory flexibility on this. The same fucking thing happened in China, too. And I suspect it's the only reason we haven't seen any real significant regulatory restrictions on crypto in America. Continuing on. The Iranian Bitcoin price broadly reflects the gap between the official exchange rate and the one on the street, a reflection of the inflationary pressures building up in an economy under U.S. sanctions. At $24,000, Bitcoin in Iran is trading at a premium of about 240% to the global average. CoinMarketCap.com quoted Bitcoin at around $7,017 at press time. According to the Exer tweet, the price in the Islamic Republic has soared about 40% in the last 3 weeks, rising much faster than the global average. It's not a stampede, but the declining rial, together with the changes in Bitcoin policy and some speculation, have prompted a spike in demand. Iran, the world's largest oil producer, is hoping to leverage cryptocurrencies to compensate for the expected squeeze in petrodollars arising from U.S. economic sanctions designed to cut oil sales from the country, the economy's lifeblood. Iran will not be the first country to try and use cryptocurrencies to deflate the effect of economic sanctions. In February, Venezuela issued a digital currency of its own called the petro, which is claimed to be backed by oil. But the petro appears to have run into trouble. Recent media reports suggest that the currency has found no takers, and the oil that was meant to back it up on a one-to-one basis with each barrel just isn't there. The U.S. has responded by banning its citizens from investing in the petro. Yeah. That doesn't really stop people from doing that. Anyway, there you have it. You know, I kind of predicted that a lot of these state-run cryptocurrencies, depending on how far they get, will run their rill and die. You know, and I really feel like Iran, you guys shouldn't even fucking waste your time. You got 5,000 other fucking cryptocurrencies out there to choose from. You don't need to make your own. But if you do make your own, let it be made by your people. Let it be mined by your people. Let it be developed by your people. And let them deploy it to the world. Cut down all this fucking, all these barriers that you put up between them and like social media and whatnot. Let go, man. This is the 21st century, and the rest of the world is not going to go away just because you put a fucking internet filter on it. I think that's a message that could be read equally validly to every other government on this fucking planet. The future is here. It's time we start acting like it. Anyway, with that, I'm feeling the need for this one song, and then we'll dive into some other stuff, or at least other music. But where is it? 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 Damn it, Jim. Why is it I can't find it when I'm looking? Oh, here it is. Fear Factory, New Breed, here on Coin Metal. And that was Ministry with Punch in the Face. And man, aren't there some people out there that you would just like to punch in the face? You know, whether they be scammers trying to crack the encryption on your D-base, scammers claiming to be certain other people and trying to claim onto their shit, or scammers, official scammers, trying to tell you that they have some sort of legitimacy in an area of technology they really don't have any control over. So, it's all out there. And it is with that I'd like to close down this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So until then, you'll be able to find me on Twitter, also on Facebook, and in the chat rooms for Verge Currency in both Discord and Telegram. So until Wednesday, I want you all to trade safe. Do your homework. Watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening. As far as our last dance is concerned, it's got to be Prong. Whose fist is this anyway? Last dance. Thank you again for listening, and you all have a great night.